Brilliant. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning. It's an absolutely lovely day outside as well, and the pubs are open, so I hope everyone's in as good a mood as I am this morning. Excuse me. The new rules have come into play from yesterday, so we're getting a little bit closer to that form of normality. Many of us are returning to the office soon. Some might be staying remote or initiating a hybrid mode, a balance in working from between home and in the office. With that, obviously, loads of businesses are probably then thinking, what now? Or how do I do this? So hopefully this morning's event is called 11 Key Steps to Take Before Returning to Your Place of Work. So if you are asking these questions, then you're in the right place, and hopefully within the next hour, we'll be able to offer some guidance and support on these things that you need to consider. Our guest speaker this morning is the brilliant Rob Best from our valued patron members Infotech Solutions. We'd like to keep this morning nice and interactive too. So following the presentation, we'll be inviting everyone to unmute themselves, probably use the raise hand function, and we'll sort of go around the room and, we'd like to hear from you guys too. Any concerns we might not have covered during the presentation, any other things that you want to speak about. We've got the platform here, everyone's here, and we'd like to invite that open conversation too. Last couple of things from me. If you do have any questions during the presentation, if you can use the chat function then, if that's okay, rather than interrupting Rob and interrupting his sort of flow, that would be fantastic. Keep yourselves on mute too for me, and we are recording this morning's session too, so if you'd like to watch back, I will be sending the link out. I think that is everything from me. If I can now hand over to Rob.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming out, especially when there's so much more we can do up from last week. I myself am still trying to get into the barbers, get the hair cut, but that's going to have to wait for another day, I think. Right, let's get this screen. All right, hi everyone, welcome to the presentation. As Molly said, I'm going to run through some key areas to consider as we start to think about returning to the workplace. So as Molly says, I'm Robert Best, the Marketing Manager at Infotech Solutions. Here's what we're going to be covering today. So I'm going to look at 11 key areas to consider when returning to work. Have a look at how those are going to affect your business, and then also have a look at some ideas for dealing with each one of those kind of areas. Just a little bit about Infotech Solutions and who we are before we get started. We're a business and technology consulting company that serves small to medium-sized businesses across the UK now. Our mission is to look after your company's IT and technology, helping you implement a proven IT strategy in alignment with your business goals and remove all IT challenges. The aim is to make IT easy for you, so you can focus on what's important, which is serving your customers better and be more adaptable to other business challenges. As Molly said, we're Kent Invicta Chamber of Commerce patrons. We're up to a year now, so that's been really exciting. Have to update that badge, it looks like. We're into the next year of it there. So really excited with how it's gone so far, and we've got lots of plans going forward as well, which is fantastic. And now exciting news, last month we become part of the Air IT Group, which is a group of IT support companies like ourselves based around the country. It's a move that's going to allow us to increase our resources, increase our connections in the industry, which in turn will allow us to offer even more solution to our customers and an even higher level of support. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's have a look at the first kind of key area, first step to have a look at. And that's ensure employee safety. I'm sure I don't have to tell anyone here, but it's the one thing we have to keep in mind above everything else, making sure that we have everything in place to ensure the safety of the employees when they come back to the workplace. How can we achieve that? So we might have to think about changing seating plans to make sure there's room for social distancing. You might also need to consider personal protection equipment. if people are leaving your site and going to customer sites, that's something that happens a lot with our company. So we've got to make sure that all our employees, when they're going off site, have access to all the equipment they need to do that safely. If your building allows it, we can even consider locking the front door to kind of stop the kind of delivery guys or people like that just coming in and out the office. It's about kind of maintaining that an ordered flow in and outside the office to make sure we keep that distancing when we're inside. And the last point on that really is don't be afraid to show off. Customers are keen to understand how businesses are dealing with COVID-19, and the treatment of your staff is often a big factor now in how people perceive your brand. So if you're putting lots of things in place, don't be afraid to tell the world about it. You know, be proud of the extra work we're doing to protect our employees. Step 2, don't all rush back. It's something that we did at Infotech in the summer when restrictions were getting removed in the summer. There, we went into small groups. We had 2 people each day in the office, and that was A, to get us used to being in the working environment again, but then also B, it kind of restricted the risk to the company. So we had 2 people on each day. If one of those people was to contract COVID and become a case, we haven't kind of infected the whole company. We've managed it quite well. It's potentially only ever one person that might be affected. And taking that kind of approach as well also allows you to fine-tune your safety measures with just a kind of small limited amount of people in the office each day. You can have much more confidence in maintaining a higher degree of social distancing, while also making yourself available as a business. As I said earlier, a big point behind us kind of taking this staggered approach is if you have one case and the whole kind of company's in the office, you kind of have the risk of exposing everyone. So that's why we took that kind of smaller approach there, and it's definitely the way we'll be looking at it this time around as well. Step 3 is set appropriate guidelines. Keep up to speed with the latest guidance from the workplace, from the government. Sometimes the messages we get on the TV can be mixed and confusing with so many different politicians telling us what to do. So always check the Gov website. All the information's there. It's actually well laid out and gives you an idea of what you can and can't do. But also don't be afraid to go beyond those guidelines as well. At a time like this, it really is a case of better safe than sorry. And then also a lot of the guidelines will differ from industry to industry. So we've had so many different industries disrupted to varying amounts throughout the last 12 months. And we kind of got to bear in mind, you know, as pubs and restaurants only start to come back now, us following the guidelines within our businesses are helping pubs and restaurants and gyms and places like that stay open for longer. So also kind of bear that in mind, the effect that our behaviors can have on other industries and other businesses. Step 4 is reevaluating your office space, the workspace. It's been a big discussion. It's gone on since so many of us started with remote working. Do you need the office space anymore? Can you get by with less space? It's all things to consider going forward. Businesses, we've had a tough time for the last 12 months. If we're still looking at ways to save money, this is definitely an option for a lot of people. Do we need as much office space as we did before? Are we going to have as many people in the office as we did before? These are all kind of questions that I think maybe we've been putting off as we still work remotely, but it's getting to that point where we will start having to consider those. As I said before, we're likely to change the layout of the workspace to allow for social distancing. That's not just kind of seating plans as well and where people are sitting at a distance. It's also as we move around the office. So are we keeping that distance that's required as we move around the office and head to the different parts of the office there as well? You'll have to give thought to those walkways, the common areas that people will have access to, such as like staff rooms, kitchen areas, toilets, those kind of things. And then lastly, kind of evaluate how did remote working work for your business? Is this something that has potential to be continued in the future? Is it something that worked well but can be improved, or was it a complete disaster? It's worth considering and seeing what options you have in the future, as opposed to everyone back in the office as we once were. And that kind of leads on to step 5 there. We have to understand that things will be different. Whether it's permanent or indefinite, COVID has definitely changed things, and it's going to be with us for a while still. We've all heard about the new normal. We all have to get used to a new normal, and the sooner we accept that, the better off I think we'll be. The way we all interact at work has changed, of course. So will the way we work. Many businesses might not have room to make their workplace COVID secure for the whole workforce as well. So as we were talking about the different measures you have to put in place, that might force you to restrict how many people you can actually have in the workplace at one time. And how are we acting with prospects and customers? I know it's been the 12 months of Zoom and video calls, but is that something that we should consider for longer as well? Those we might head back to the workplace, but those sales calls might stay on Zoom for a while still. So again, it's making sure, have we got the right technology for that when we're back in the office, as opposed to kind of working from home on laptops and that? Do we have the right things in place to maintain that professional appearance over video? Step 6, become the return to work experts for your customers. Share your experiences and your knowledges. This is all a completely new experience for everyone. We've never been through anything like this for now. So if you're returning to your offices before your customers, then your experience can help them immensely. Because of the type of business that we are, we've been lucky to act as a kind of work from home experts as soon as the pandemic hit, and we were forced into that kind of remote working area. As a technology company, our customers relied on us heavily for working from home solutions, and the same can also be achieved for the return to the workplace. Stay in touch with your customers, see how they're getting on with the return there. Over the last kind of 12 months, we've kind of realized how our relationships have changed, and that affects businesses as well. So it is a time to look after our customers, our prospects, our suppliers, the whole kind of the range there. So as we kind of tentatively head back to the workspace, keep in touch with them, see how they're getting on. Can we pass on any expertise to them? Have they got any good ideas that can help you? Step 7, embrace the change. It's okay to change the way you work. It was forced upon us, but for some people that was a good thing. For others, maybe not so much. If we've learned anything over this pandemic, that it's okay to do things differently. Through the forced changes, many have found better ways of working. That might be the way the employees work, or even I've seen plenty of businesses pivot into a new target market or a completely different industry altogether. So it's again changing that mindset. What we were doing over 12 months ago now might not be the way we have to do things going forward. Management styles will definitely have to approach that, to adapt to how we're going to be working now. And that needs a kind of well-scheduled and thought-out approach. Step 8 is restricting access. So before the lockdown, it might have been common for people to be coming in and out of the workplace. You'll have to decide how appropriate that is now. For us, we always had delivery people coming in and out the door. that's not an option for us right now because of the way our seating has to be laid out in the office. We've got too many people too close to the door. So we will have to find another way of kind of getting these deliveries into our office. If your employees have to go to customer sites, and as I said, that's something that we do a lot of at Infotech, you'll need to give them new guidelines of how they need to approach that. You'll need to work with your customers a lot closer now to make sure that everyone is safe during these visits. We might even look at adjusting business hours as well. If you work in a busy area, we're up on the Medway City estate. It's a very kind of busy area. There's a big office complex at the back that we're a part of. We've seen it already that people are changing business hours to kind of avoid a big scrum of us all arriving at 9:15 or 8:30 or that kind of thing there. So consider maybe we can do something with those different business hours so we're not all arriving at the same point. And that might kind of work just for your business as well. You take 3 or 4 employees and kind of adjust their hours. So we'll have a staggered approach to all arriving and leaving. Step 9, everyone works differently. Throughout this whole time of remote working, many companies have noticed the trend that some workers have made the transition smoothly and others have not. As more businesses start to reopen their workplace, they may need to consider a hybrid model of being in the workplace and working remotely. As I've said before, kind of splitting that office staff, some in, some out, and vary it up that way there. Some of your staff will have loved remote working, others may have hated it. The problem we all have now is we've all experienced it. We've had that kind of 12 months where we've seen a different way of working, and for some the flexibility has been fantastic. You know, it's been great for mental health and things like that. So we have to kind of consider the employee feelings as we're moving forward and allowing that option to continue remote working in certain situations. Of course, you have to bear in mind as well what's best for your business. But a big part of that is always going to be the feelings and of your staff as well. So that's definitely a challenge going forward, how we're going to kind of marry that what's best for business, but also what's best for the staff as well. Step 10, have a plan B. If the last 12 months has taught us anything, we have to be able to adapt to the regulations changing quickly. Hopefully things go smoothly, but always hope for the best and plan for the worst. And that involves having a plan B. You know, if things do change as we head into the summer months, we've got to be ready to adapt again. And that might be returning to the kind of blanket remote working again. So how easy is that going to be setting up again for your workforce, for your staff? Only when we return to the workplace as well will we truly know what's going to work and what isn't going to work as well. So definitely have a plan to start off with, but you'll have to have some sort of flexibility in there. And as I say, as regulations come and go, we might have to completely veer off in other directions. So have that plan B and have that flexibility available for you. Step 11, the last step, and of course, being an IT company, it's a big one for us. The last 12 months have changed the way we work, and that will have affected the technology within your business and the security of that technology. As we head towards a possible workplace where we've got some working from home, some in the workplace, technology is going to play a bigger role in your business, and it's going to play a different role than it has done before. So you must make sure that that technology is secure. We're working in ways that we haven't worked before, so it's likely that the kind of security processes and policies that you had in place will need to be updated to cover not just what we've done working remotely, but any kind of potential changes we have going forward to working in the workplace. What we were able to offer now to help out with that is we've always been able to do a full kind of technology audit, but now with our kind of partnership in the Air IT group, we can offer a free IT security audit. So it purely focuses on the security within your business. It's something that we've been running for a couple of months now. Our clients that we've run it for have really appreciated it. It's a way of just kind of giving you a full overview of where your IT security is at. As I say, in the last 12 months, that's probably changed a lot more than we're probably aware of. It's something that's non-invasive as well. We don't get access to your data. It's just a kind of remote tool that we can set up to kind of run through the system, and it will help you find what's working, what's not working. For some, it might give just peace of mind that everything's okay, but in most instances, we do find that there's things that can be improved on, and there's things that have to be improved on as well, some kind of critical areas there. So we're able to give at the end of it a full kind of roadmap. Here's what we recommend. Here's what needs to be done straight away. Here's what can be done in the future as well. So it's not all just kind of big, right, here's a load of things to fix straight away. We're able to kind of map it out for you there. And that's it. Those are the kind of 11 kind of key stages there. I hope you found it useful experience there, giving you some extra things to think about. As Molly said earlier, I think it's a good idea to for us, as we're all here, to kind of run through all the ideas. I'm certainly not a kind of return to work regulations expert, you know. So these are things that, as a business, we've thought about. These are things that our customers have been telling us that they're thinking about as well. So the things that are on their mind, but there are so many different things as well that we can all discuss there. So what I'll do, I'll come out of the share there.
No, that's brilliant. That's really good tips. And I really like, you know, what you said, prepare for the worst, but hope for the best. And I think that's so true. Because I mean, I think realistically, no one really properly prepared for what we've had over the last few years, because no one could ever expect it to actually happen. And it's kind of proved, you know, why we should prepare for the worst, but obviously hope for the best. So I think that's really true. And I love what you said as well about maybe doing like sort of staggered times and like office hours for people, so everyone's not, you know, everyone turns up to work, they make a cup of tea, you're all in the kitchen, you chat for a couple minutes, then you go to your desk, you speak to someone else. So that staggered approach, I think, is a really good idea, and something that, I mean, I personally hadn't really heard someone suggest before, and it makes so much sense. So that's really good advice. Thank you.
Yeah, like I say, those are things that we're trying out ourselves as well. We don't know how well they're going to work, but it is something we have to try, just to have that kind of peace of mind, and also make sure that we are following the social distancing regulations that's still in place, and making sure everyone's safe coming back into the office.
Yeah, we mentioned that we'd like to have a bit of an open conversation, which I think is a really good idea. And just jumping into the chat here, I wondered if Paul, maybe, if you're happy to unmute, as you've given some really good suggestions here about running the taps to make sure pathogens, and with the air conditioning units as well. I didn't know if, Paul, you'd be happy to unmute and give a couple of tips, or maybe just expand on that a little bit more.
Thank you, Molly. Yes, of course I would. Okay, so I've been reading the comments as they've been coming up, and I think that Fiona Valentine has actually hit the nail on the head. There are a set of rules to follow. Health and safety is something that always needs to be dealt with as an ongoing measure. But what I was talking about is that the majority of people who've been away from their office, if they run a small business, they may not be totally au fait with the health and safety regulations. So the first thing I think ought to be considered is that Legionnaires is very easily created by you know, stagnant water and especially when the office hasn't been used and the taps haven't been run and showers haven't been run and various measures like that. Those are simple things that need to be done. But Kaz also commented on air conditioning. Air conditioning is proving to be probably one of the most key and critical components of dealing with this type of infection. To have, okay, so in hospitals, if they've got a COVID situation, what they do is they change the air 5 times an hour, between 5 and 8 times an hour, before they allow their cleaning operatives to actually go in. And that message hasn't really translated through to the general public. So the hospitals, if you like, being the safest places there are, they're actually adopting some very, very fundamental rules, and that's changing the air on a regular basis. And as soon as we go in, we all turn on the heating, and we go through those same measures that we do in ordinary circumstances. But now there is no, as Rob said, there's a new normal, and that new normal is going to have to be mindful of infection control. One of the, I think one of the things that I disagree with with Public Health England on is that they ask you to write a risk assessment and to actually submit that. I think that is something that should be done, but I don't think that ought to be the first priority. I think that what people ought to do is to actually simple measures, open up all the windows, actually get some air ventilation, make sure that the premises are clean and hygienic. If you have a stubborn system, give me a call. If you need something along those lines, there are methods to be able to be quite draconian and deal with those problems. So in essence, we do have a new normal, and the new normal is going to pave the way for our futures. I don't want to complicate the issue too much, but there's a much bigger picture behind the scenes, which is called antimicrobial resistance. It's about antibiotics, but that is probably even more scary, even more potentially harmful to the population. And I think we need to sort of learn from COVID and actually apply those new rules going forwards, dealing with AMR.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. That's really great to hear. So thank you for that. And you work for the decontaminator, is that right, Paul?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a local business, and we offer services to hospitals, care homes, and a variety of other types of places as well, and obviously offices.
I'd be keen to hear, just jumping back into chat as well here. I've seen Sophie. I don't know if you would be happy to unmute at all. So I think you've made a really good point that you said that we're thinking of doing community days. And I think one of the things from working from home that people are also nervous about going back to the office is sort of getting back to knowing each other again and that social side of things, becoming a team again and working together. I think everyone's got so used to working by themselves that could be quite daunting. So I'd like to hear a little bit more, perhaps, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Molly. Sorry about my cat. Always makes an appearance just when you don't want it to. Yeah, I mean, basically, I've sort of stuck with, so we're all, so yeah, I'm from Canterbury Christ Church University, and we're all mainly working remotely. And one of the things that I've started to do, because we're expecting students back, I think we've just got the government guidance, so I think it's going to be mid-May. So, from that point, we'll have a lot more students on campus, and there'll be an expectation that staff will be on campus as well. So we've started having conversations within teams, because what I've realized is that everyone is completely different. Personally, I am probably at the more sort of confident end of the spectrum, and I'm just going to move my cat because she's so distracting. So, you know, I can't wait to get back into the office, but I've got people who are very nervous, really reluctant to go back. Other people who are quite happy working remotely because they've got long commutes and they don't want to go back to that long commute. So, you know, I have, you know, learned over the last 12 months that the worst thing you can do is to try and impose things on staff. So we've started having conversations in sort of one-to-ones and in team meetings, just to start testing the water with people really, and getting their ideas on what they think would work. And a couple of people have said that, you know, they're really keen to have days when everyone's in the office, because I think people, you know, they literally haven't seen each other for a year in so many cases. And I think we do, you know, what we've realized is that, you know, we do actually miss each other. And whilst we don't want to all be in every day, and it might just be one day a month that we have these sort of whole team days, but we're thinking that that would be really good. And it's quite encouraging that people do actually want to sort of interact with each other physically again, and don't all want to carry on working remotely. So yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, my big takeaway has been just listen to people and let them talk and be led by staff. Really, I think that's so important.
And communication's definitely key, isn't it? And I think I'm similar. I'm quite confident with going back to work, but I know people in our office that have always been very nervous, and you know, people have got that hard job of trying to make sure that everyone's comfortable. When you work sometimes with such big teams, it's really hard to do. So definitely, I love that idea of, you know, keeping that communication and testing the waters and really speaking to see what people want. That no one's.
Yes, and Molly, what Paul and Sophie have kind of highlighted quite well there is a mindset is like, how are we protecting ourselves from COVID? But there's other stuff out there as well. As Paul said, running the taps. That's something that we've done as soon as we went back into the office, and I'm very glad that you brought that up as well, because that's a very good point. Things like that, and as Sophie's point there as well is, there's other things to consider as well. You know, if we purely focus on COVID-19, we might miss other bits there. As Sophie says, there's definitely mental health issues as well to consider as well. People are missing being back as a team, but some people are still nervous. Like personally myself, I think I'm a bit more nervous than I was in the summer, because it feels like we're towards the end of it, and I'm like, well, if we mess up now, like that seems such a waste of 12 months, you know, of sacrificing and working so hard. So it's funny how the mindset has changed so much over time. And as Sophie said, there's bound to be people who are just desperate to get back into the social interaction of it all. So this is how there's so many different factors to consider that I'm glad both of those points were made there, because they're two bits that I didn't cover there, but are definitely important areas as well.
We had a good question as well here from Sally Ann. I don't know, Sally, if you're happy to unmute at all. It's regarding people that have been promoted or working overtime.
Yeah, because I'm a psychic medium, but a lot of what I do is counselling, and I've been really busy last week and this week with people just wanting to talk to a person, kind of like face to face, and that's the thing where HR teams have changed, and also people have had to make up job roles, well, not make them up, but form job roles due to Brexit. So people have also been retiring early, so people are getting promoted and they're not being trained by the person's shoes they're filling. So they're just going into these new roles without anyone to train them. Half of their work's got to be done from home, so it's putting a lot of pressure on them. And I was like, well, have you thought about talking to the HR team? And they were like, well, we don't know where they are. We don't know who's stayed or who hasn't. And I'm like, so you're going to work every day and you don't know exactly who's in charge, when in fact you're in charge if you're the new manager or regional manager. So I'm not going to name names or businesses for obvious reasons. But it's like these are really important roles to do with transport at Dover, or it's to do with retail. And it's like retail's under so much pressure. It's like you don't want to think that your manager doesn't know exactly who to talk to about HR issues, because it's like if you've got a HR issue, what's your manager going to tell you? That they don't know where HR are or who you need to talk to? It's a really awkward situation. And all I could do is like, well, maybe find out who HR are and see if there's some online solution. It's like if I have a customer service issue, or even like I communicate with the police a lot, there's a chat function for the police. It's like, so surely HR teams have that function too, or maybe it's not being communicated well enough. But I've had too many people say it to me, particularly like I said, hospitality, transport and retail. It's almost like they've just had to make things up as they go along. I appreciate that's what the government are doing as well. It's just if you've got all that pressure on your shoulders, how are you going to fulfill your new role and deal with all that pressure if you've not, or if you don't feel supported by your company?
Yeah, I think a lot of people over the previous year, I think masters of winging it, I've used that title a lot over the past year. But yeah, it's definitely a hard thing to do, especially with lack of guidance, a lot of adapting. And yeah, sort of reaching out to people, relying on each other, and that remote element can be really tricky. We have a couple of people at our office which they work for the chamber. They're actually based over in India. So sometimes it can work really well. You know, they do a fantastic job, and it's crazy as well, the options it's been able to give everyone. You know, that they're on a completely different time to the rest of us, so their working days are slightly different to ours, and those geographical barriers as well have sort of gone at the same time. So it's really interesting to see that whole perspective as to how the remote working's sort of worked for some people really well, others maybe not so well. But it is really interesting, and I'd be keen to know as well, maybe following on from that, what elements people will be keeping. You know, some people will be staying remote, some people going to the office. Is there anything in particular anyone's learned from the last year that they thought this definitely needs to stay? You know, we haven't done this before.
Molly, can I interject here? Really, really useful questions from everyone. Really interesting insight. My question goes to Rob, and it's more of a sort of logistic question. Rob, who's our presenter today from Infotech, patron members, always delighted to have you with us. Rob, for me, the whole issue of going back to the office is lugging the IT. You know, because at the moment I'm set up from home. I've got it all sorted out on the dining room table. I've got my little riser. I've got my notebook, and I'm all set up. But every time I go into the office as a sort of welfare call, I have to take the whole lot with me. And of course, then it involves setting up the Wi-Fi again. I don't suppose you've got any magic solutions other than for my company to give me 2 laptops so I don't have to log it about. But it's a real fag, isn't it?
Yeah, so we were quite traditional desktops in our workplace. And then when we've had to work from home, suddenly that's a new solution to find out. And as you say, if you're going to be back and forth, like you're dragging a lot of stuff back into the office and back, and you're bound to forget things. And yeah, definitely, it's a big palaver. I think the big thing is making use of the cloud. So I work here on my laptop, and all the files that I access are not on this laptop, they're on the cloud. So when I go back and I'm in the office, I just turn on my PC and I can access all the same files. So I don't have to worry about bringing my laptop wherever I go, because all the files are accessible in the cloud. And that kind of might help out with a couple of the problems that Sally Ann was pointing out as well. From the technology point of view, we use a piece of software called Microsoft Teams, and that is it's a cloud solution. So we've got all our files in there, but it's almost like your company is in the computer. So we're all split into teams, and it's all visible who's in what team. It's a communication device, but it's a way of keeping up on where everyone is as well. And just a second point as well, as like Sally Ann was talking about, people getting promoted or into new jobs. Of course, Brexit, we forgot to say Brexit. Who would have thought coming like in April 2021, we'd forget about Brexit, but so much else has been going on. We again use a piece of software. It's called our IT Glue. It's specific for a kind of the work that we do, but it does work for other businesses. We've installed it for customers as well. But it's like a documentation vault almost. So all our job roles, everything that we do is in that vault, you know, all the passwords are in there, everything we need for customer access is in there. And so if I was to leave the business tomorrow, they'd know how to do my job because it's in this documentation. It's in this vault. You can see everything that I'm there to do. Of course, you have the human element of keeping that updated, but it's definitely a good way we can get people up to speed when they come into the business. And as things change, we update that documentation and we've got that change in there and we know how to do it next time. So those are a couple of the technology solutions that have really helped us out as kind of staying connected, but then also kind of having that idea of what new roles look like or how we can train people up. We've got that documentation. You can crack on and get started there.
That's a really comprehensive reply, Rob. Thanks. And we sincerely hope you don't leave because we like seeing you. You always give us some great takeaways whenever you come to our events. So great solutions there from Infotech Technology, based on the Medway City estate, isn't it?
Yes, we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Molly, you've raised a really good question. If there was one thing that would be your biggest concern about returning to work, and we noticed the sort of tongue-in-cheek reply there about parking, which would be a challenge. But I was thinking more in the lines of the sort of work that Paul does, the safety aspect. I really like Rob's suggestion of the staggered return. So we're not all walking in at the same time. We're not all going to the coffee machine, touching it with an unwashed hand, going on to our servers, you know, multiple ones of us. So yes, some really good takeaways there. Over to you, Molly. What has everyone else been missing?
I know another suggestion that I just thought of as well. I believe there's still time to apply. So in case anyone doesn't know, I believe the government announced that you can register for free rapid testing for businesses as well. I believe we have until the 30th of June to register for the rapid tests. Don't quote me on that, but it'll be on, the information will be on the gov.uk website as well. So if anybody's interested in things like that, you know, if you've got lots of people coming into the office, then it's definitely worth looking into. I know if the date has passed, then I believe you can get up to 7 tests per week delivered to your home as well. So potentially if you can't get it delivered to your business, then that's also another option to consider safety wise as well. It's lovely to see. I can see in the comments here that people have registered this for their company, so that's fantastic, and it's always good to know that the government's messages are getting across.
Yes, Molly, I think that's a really good point because it just offers reassurance. Lots of people I know have at least had the first inoculation, and many people are waiting for the second. I suspect you're too young to have had yours, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you haven't been offered. I honestly think that people will perhaps have greater confidence when they've actually had the second inoculation, and I think maybe that's going to be sometime nearer the middle of May. A lot of older people have already had theirs, but of course they're not the ones in the workplace. They're not the ones at the cold front like you and I. But it's interesting to see what people have been missing the most. Did anybody go out and do something different yesterday? I'll be interested to know who went out shopping yesterday. Unmute, just jump on in there.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, what did you buy, Sophie?
Oh God, do you know what? I'm slightly embarrassed to admit I bought 2 handbags, some jewellery and a shawl. I went mad.
Go you. We've got money to spend and we're going to spend it, indeed. What about you other guys there? Pauline, super to see you here today. It's been so long, Pauline Martin. Unmute, what have you been missing? Left-hand side at the bottom,
Yeah.
Pauline. That's it.
Got it. What about going shopping, do you mean?
Yes, what have you missed?
Not so much shopping. Seeing family for me has been the worst. Not
Sure.
seeing family has been the worst for me. But I've been lucky, whereas I've been still going to the office. I'm part-time in our office.
Sure.
So for me, my days have been shaped by going into the office, which is really good. Whereas I did work from home for a little while, and for me, the days just merged into one. There was no definition of the day. But I did learn from that, because I was leaving my laptop on even when I wasn't at work, and I would sort of dip in, what's going on, looking at same page and stuff like that. So I did learn from that. The second time, as soon as my hours were over and I was working from home, I would put my laptop away so that was work finished, because before, work was just there all the time, which was a mistake for me, because I was getting anxious.
That's a very good point. For those of you that don't know Pauline, she's from Who Cares over on the island there. But yes, somebody actually said that to me. When you finish work, Kaz, put your laptop away in your work bag, because psychologically you've actually finished work.
That's
so
right.
Interesting. Catherine, I'd like to bring you in. Catherine Swinney, Kent and Medway, delightful to have you here. Thank you so much for unmuting. Was your day any different yesterday?
Not so much for myself, because I did have quite a few meetings yesterday, but I actually live a 5-minute walking distance from the Ashford Outlet, so I'm very excited to see it opening again, and we've been using it as sort of a walking route after the day to kind of help with that ritual of switching off. But it's very, it's been sort of funny to just use that as a walking route and just see all the Christmas like dresses and sort of Christmas clothing out still. So it'll be nice to sort of see the shops being able to sort of, switch out their window and get some spring clothes in, and just, see a bit of a sort of traffic going through there again.
I've just seen
That's awesome. I mean, sorry, Molly. We're delighted to hear that the Ashford Outlet is so popular. Kelly, my business associate, featured the Ashford Outlet a couple of weeks ago on Business Talks, and they were really very serious about their measures in trying to protect the public going there. And I had the pleasure of being in a plenary session with Sally Ann, who said that she enjoyed shopping at the outlet, but the fact that you actually use it as a walking route as well. Really interesting. Sorry, Molly, over to you.
No, that's okay. I just thought it'd be interesting, and Rob, you've just put in the chat as well. It'd be interesting to hear your tips for ending the working day, because I know that's definitely something that I need to still get a grasp of.
Yeah. As I said there in the chat, like a big one that included that article was like physically doing something. Like, okay, I've reached the end of my day, and as we said, we shut the laptop down and we put the laptop in the bag. But whether it's go for a 10-minute walk, or whether it's go and put the washing on, go and jump in the car for 5 minutes, but like a big kind of physical thing, and almost do the same at the start of the day as well. So it's like, okay, this is where the work day starts, and this is where the work day ends. Because for so many people, like, if you haven't got too much space, you might be kind of working where you're living. You haven't got like those different rooms to just go in and say, right, okay, I don't go in that room again because that's the work room. So just finding a clear kind of, right, this is, bam, end of the day, and I do something completely different, and I'm out of that work mode.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like Catherine agrees as well, which is great to see in the chat. But yeah, definitely, it's one thing I really struggle with, I must admit. And then I end up sat there in the evenings, and because you use your computer day to day as well, you end up replying to emails, and I'm awful at taking my lunch break. So it's a nice reminder to see that as well. Thank you, Catherine. I believe we had another question from Kelly, and then just the note, we are slightly running out of time as well. So if anybody has any other questions or anything they'd like to talk about, pop it in the chat and we'll make sure that we get to discuss that before we finish at past.
Yeah, thank you, Molly. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I just wanted to really highlight the importance, I think, of being aware of everyone's emotional well-being when returning back to work. Because although there's some of us that are confident and some of us that, you know, I don't know, some people have been isolated for so long. And I think it really is considerate to kind of think that perhaps people are going to be quite tetchy, or, you know, it might not be the same environment as what it was before. And I think, you know, it's kind of just holding some empathy for people, really, and understanding that, you know, it could have been a really challenging time. If it hadn't been for you, it might have been for one of your colleagues. So yeah, I think I just wanted to raise that, really, just to say, you know, I hope everyone can be a bit empathic with returning back to work, and having, yeah, giving everyone a little bit of a wide rope, if we say it like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's going to be a lot of changes and a lot of, you know, everyone's got used to working from home again, and now we're going to be getting used to going back to the office again and kind of going full circle. And Kaz, yeah, we need to be kind. It's as simple as that. You know, everyone's gone through a lot the past year and we all have that in common. So sort of lean on that experience that we've all had together. It looks like we're coming to the end of the session. If no one has anything else they'd like to discuss or any other comments, then I might round it up there, which just really leaves me to say thank you so much today, Rob. That's obviously sparked some really good conversations following the your discussion there, and some really, really good tips and a lot for us all to think about. So thank you very much, and I hope you all enjoyed it.
And just before we log off, if I could give everyone a quick shout out for Business Talks this Thursday. We've got a virtual tour of street soccer with Keith Mabbott. So for all of our members here, it's free to attend and we would be delighted to see you. So from Team Chamber, our IT guru, Molly Hall and Kelly Chawner, and most of all, thank you to Rob at Infotech for your kind input here. I've got some really great takeaways, Rob. Many thanks indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.